I'm Tracy Edwards, writer, storyteller, and the voice behind Let's Get Unstuck. And around here, we don't do perfect, we do truth. We talk about the experience that leave us feeling stuck, the lessons hidden inside them, and the steps that help us move forward. Because if you feel stuck right now, it doesn't mean you're finished. There is always a way forward. And every next step brings you closer to the person you were meant to be. And that's what it means to get unstuck. I always love that intro. John did such a good job when he created that. And I feel like we've never talked about it. But I do want to have him on one day to have the history behind all of the artwork, because he actually crafted it all himself during COVID. And it's a really beautiful story, and I'm so glad he repurposed it and is letting me use it as part of my intro. So anyway, guys, welcome back to Let's Get Unstuck. Normally, this is where I'll introduce a guest and tell them about the incredible story they're going to share. But this week, the guest is me. And I figured, I got to share a little bit about myself. It's only fair. You all come here and pour your hearts and souls. You bring the courage and the truth and honesty and love to this, that I gotta show up too. I gotta show up and tell my truth as well. So like I said, I've spent the past year inviting you all onto this platform to share the hardest moments of your lives. And this week I gotta turn it to me. So my story I wrote, I think I dropped it a few weeks ago on Substack. And it's called Walking on Eggshells in My Own Skin. Sit for just a minute and think about that. You always hear people say walking on eggshells around you. I don't feel like I'm walking on eggshells when you come into the room. But what about when you feel like you're walking on eggshells internally? And I didn't even know that was a thing. And I didn't write this because I had everything figured out, obviously. I wrote it because I didn't. And over the last few months, I've been navigating something that has completely shaken my confidence, my identity, and honestly, the way I've experienced everyday life. So, from the outside, my life could look like everything's fine. Nothing's wrong. But internally, it felt like I was losing my own damn mind. I didn't recognize myself, and I couldn't even put words to it, which was just wild. And I haven't been in that place before. It was so hard for me to figure out what was going on. So again, the story isn't about having all of these answers, because I don't. I'm still navigating. It's a story about telling the truth while still living through it. Because I know I'm not the only person who's ever looked in the mirror and thought, where the hell did I go? So today, I'm going to read my essay. And afterward, instead of interviewing someone else, I'm going to go ahead and interview myself, which always cracks me up because I'm literally speaking to myself. So here we go. I am going to read Walking on Eggshells in My Own Skin. Bear with me while I get through this. I was crying in the shower and I couldn't tell you why. I cried in the car. One afternoon, Andy came home and he found me curled up on the couch, holding our dog and bawling my eyes out. Poor sweet Lucy had no clue what was going on, but there she is, my little therapy dog. And I literally thought I was going to have a mental breakdown. But the crazy part was, nothing happened. That was the part I could not understand. There was no single disaster that had torn through my life. There wasn't a crisis unfolding. Nobody had hurt me. There was no bad news waiting around the corner. Honestly, everybody around me was healthy, happy, and just carrying on with life. Yet, my body was reacting as though my world was falling apart. Somewhere along the way, my own mind became the hardest place to live. I could barely swallow my food sometimes. A sentence disappeared halfway through speaking it. Tasks that once felt easy now looked like puzzles scattered across the floor with pieces missing. My chest tightened, my throat closed, and breathing became something I had to think about instead of something my body just naturally does. What has been the hardest is not the anxiety itself. It is looking at my own life, knowing I have so much to be grateful for and still struggling to feel like myself. Why did I feel like I was unraveling when there was no obvious reason for it? Why did it feel like I was losing my footing in a life that was otherwise standing on solid ground? Life is good, but my mind is not. My days are not empty of beauty. They are actually filled with people I love. A husband who shows up for me, laughter from a puppy, and opportunities I once hoped would come. And of course, amazing friends. Nothing about my life says disaster. That is why the storm in my head feels so confusing. Nothing around me is on fire, yet everything inside me feels urgent. My life is full of things I once prayed for. So why does it feel like I'm bracing for a disaster? Why does this part of life seem so much heavier than the rest? My mind is not asking questions right now. It is building disasters before anything even happens. I could be standing in a perfectly normal moment when the spiral starts pulling at me. Before anything has even happened, I'm already feeling behind. Then failure shows up, and the future starts to look smaller and smaller and smaller than it really is. And what was steady begins to feel uncertain, even though nothing has changed at all. None of that is happening right now. My body still reacts like it is. There is this version of me I cannot find right now. The crazy part is people know me as the positive one. I'm usually the person bringing the energy into the room, finding perspective for everyone else, cheering people on, being their biggest cheerleaders. I really am. I'm really good at that. And believing there is a way through hard seasons. Positivity has never been fake for me. It's been very real, and it still is. That has been the most unsettling part of all of this. More than the crying, more than the anxiety, even more than the sleepless nights. It is the feeling of being disconnected from the person I have trusted my entire life. Me. Lately, the loudest voice in the room has been my own, and she has not been kind. Strengths I know I carry suddenly feel invisible. Confidence slips through my hands. A future that has not happened yet gets treated like bad news, and doubt starts calling itself truth. I know what I'm capable of, but accessing that truth has been a completely other story. I've handled hard things before, so why is this one kicking my ass? One of the hardest lessons has been realizing that healthy habits are not always enough. I move my body every day. I eat well most of the time, minus my fat Sundays, because occasionally I just make bad decisions on Sundays and I just say, fuck it. I have pulled away from drinking like I am no longer 20 and built for bad decisions, though I understand the appeal of anything that promises just 10 minutes of relief. I have breathed deeply, sat down in meditation, and tried to outwork my own mind. None of it means I'm not trying. It just means this season has asked for more than my usual tools. Some tools help. Then there are days when nothing touches it. That was the hard part for me to admit. I wanted to believe discipline could solve everything. I saw myself as the kind of person who could fix herself with mindset, movement, and gratitude alone. I'm tired of pretending I can mindset my way out of this shit. The honest truth is that sometimes the issue has nothing to do with weakness and everything to just do with overload. Hormones can shift from the ground beneath you in ways that are hard to explain. Exhaustion changes how the whole world feels. All the while, long seasons of stress teach the body to expect danger, even when you are finally standing in a safe place. That is why anxiety can feel so convincing. It speaks in your voice, uses your fears, and acts like facts. Brain chemistry, rest, and real support all play a role in finding your way back. Fear can be loud as fuck and still be wrong. This does not stay contained inside one person. The pain touches the people around you. My husband has shown up for me through all of this, and I know it has affected him and us. Communication gets harder when someone you love does not know which version of the day they are walking into. Are you okay? Became a question Andy started asking more often. He said it feels like walking on eggshells around me because he has never seen how quickly I get overwhelmed or upset. That hurts to hear. Not because he's wrong, but because I know he's trying. There is grief in watching the people who love you adjust to pain they did not create and cannot fix. I never wanted medication, ever. Fought against it. I fought the idea of needing help for depression or anxiety. Part of me wanted to solve it privately and come back stronger without anyone knowing how bad it got. I was choosing pride over help, but eventually, honesty became more important than pride. That meant talking to a psychiatrist and deciding to take a low dosage of Prozac and asking real questions about what is happening in my body and why I have felt so unlike myself. Asking for help does not mean I failed. Searching for answers is not a weakness. And there is nothing shameful about telling the truth about the pain you're in. So, if you see yourself in this, just know that some of the brightest, strongest people, most successful people you know are carrying private battles. A good life on paper does not automatically create peace inside your head. Fear can get louder than facts, and the version of you that once felt easy to access can feel far away for a while. None of that means you're broken or you are alone. Trust me, I understand. What I want to remember is that the bravest thing I have done may be telling the truth about how hard this has been. Letting go of the performance brings relief. Asking for help takes strength, and believing this version of me is not permanent leaves room for hope. One day I will look back and see that I was never failing. I was learning to carry pain differently, meet myself with honesty, and heal without pretending. What felt like weakness was exhaustion. For months, I had been monitoring every feeling, questioning every reaction, and bracing for the next wave before the last one had even passed. And that is when I realized I was exhausted from walking on eggshells in my own skin. That's it. I gotta be honest. Reading that out loud is completely different experience than writing it. Woo! Okay, that felt good to get out. So, like when I wrote this essay, I was trying to make sense of something that still doesn't completely make sense to me, and that's uncomfortable because I like solutions. I want to know, like, I feel like I'm making progress. I like being the person who is usually finding her way through hard times. But this season has reminded me that sometimes healing isn't linear. Sometimes that my biggest or your biggest act of courage isn't fixing yourself. It's simply telling the truth about where you're actually at right now in life. The one thing I've learned through Let's Get Unstuck is the stories have a way of making people feel less alone. If my story helps even one person realize they're not losing their mind and they're not weak, I freaking did a good job. And that also asking for help is not failure. It's one of the hardest things to do. And it's hard to even share these stories. I mean, but it's worth it. Every ounce of vulnerability, it's worth it. So I wrote myself some questions. Anyhow, so throughout my essay, I described feeling like I didn't recognize myself anymore. I even write that life was good, but my mind wasn't. So my question to myself, when did I realize this wasn't just a bad week anymore? Everything, I feel like it literally switched in one day. I got a new opportunity with work, a new contract, and I was like, okay, this is cool. All this shit started happening at the same time I got this contract, right? And I thought like everything on the outside, everything looked great. But like all of a sudden out of nowhere, I'm not kidding you guys. I started crying. I cry. I have emotions, but not like this. I mean, this was like somebody I have never seen before. And I was crying in the car on my way to pick up Andy for no reason, had no clue why. So he gets in the car, I'm just sobbing. He's like, what is going on? And I'm like, it's hard to explain because I didn't have answers for it. And these symptoms, they just kept like intensifying. Like I couldn't do simple things. And I'm starting this new job, which does require simple things. So it was driving me freaking nuts. And I've done some complex shit in my life, man. So that was one thing. And then I started having difficulty eating. Like I couldn't like swallow my food. I kept like having to tap my throat. And a bit of brain fog kicked in. I was just making it was just like executive dysfunction. It was a mess. Anyhow, I started to realize this was much, much bigger than stress. Question 2. One of the hardest parts of my story, is that my thoughts weren't asking questions anymore. They were creating disasters before anything had ever happened. It's freaking nuts. What was fear trying to convince me of? I didn't think I could do the job that I just got. I mean, if you guys know me, and some of my followers obviously do, some of my accomplishments that I've had, through my career. And I took a chance on something different because I thought maybe this might just be the easier way to, get my foot in the door to a new new career path. And boy, was I wrong. But it was more basic than anything that I had done before. So the fact that I was fearing that I was going to fail something like this was just, it was not normal. I literally started combating with self-worth again, not thinking that I deserved the position I got, not thinking that I was going to be any good at it. My confidence was at the bottom of the barrel again, and fear just literally became unbearable. And again, fear can be loud as fuck, and it can be wrong, and I have to remind myself of that. And every day was like this battle of looking at my screen and just going, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to answer this question. I don't even know the right question to ask. I started having a really, really hard time seriously being in my own skin. And I kept thinking, like, what if this doesn't work out? What am I going to do? What am I good at? Who's going to hire me? I'm in my mid-40s. How am I going to start off on a new path? What happens if, I don't even know. Like, the future just became so much heavier for me than I have ever looked at it. And I've never looked at the future like that. I was always more about, yeah, looking at future in essence, but not down this dark road that I became afraid of. And, oh, Sarah, what do you got for me, girl? Sorry, guys. Sarah's one of my favorite followers and subscribers on Substack, so I want to see what she said. She asked me, did you ever deny how you felt because you were afraid of being seen differently? That's a good question, Sarah. Did I ever deny how you felt because you were afraid of being seen differently? Possibly. I don't know. I haven't really thought about that question. Maybe sometimes I think about it like being seen differently, maybe where I'm at with my career, if that makes any sense, where, people might look at me and say, why is she doing this when she used to do this? And maybe that part of me, yes. Part two of your question was, have you ever been afraid to tell people how you felt because you didn't know how to explain it? Absolutely. I sat with this for a while. I couldn't articulate it to Andy. I couldn't articulate it to really my friends. And I also didn't know how I wanted to explain it, to be honest with you. I was embarrassed of how I was feeling. And come to find out, the more you communicate and the more you put yourself out there and the more conversations you have that are honest and real, the more you discover that there are people out there going through the exact same thing you're going through that could provide you with a level of sanity to let you know that you're not losing your freaking mind. And that part has been incredible. Thanks for the question. That was awesome. Next one I wrote. I describe myself as someone people have always known to be positive, resilient, and optimistic. What was it like to suddenly become someone I didn't recognize? Ooh, identity grief. I started to question, was that ever really you? Which pissed me off because I've always been that person. But I was challenging myself. I wasn't sure. I started to say, maybe you were never that person. Maybe you weren't the positive one. Maybe you weren't the one that cheered everybody on because that was really how it was or how you were. And I started to really doubt me, which is really, really hard and hurtful to do to yourself, especially when you actually know yourself, but you're going down this road and you're like, putting these thoughts into your head, and you start to kind of just look at them and go, wait, are my thoughts right? Are my thoughts accurate? No, they can't be right. And you start questioning them. Oh, Sarah, thank you. I'll read that in a second. Again, feel like you completely lost yourself. I looked in the mirror and I was just like, never felt suicidal, never felt like harming anybody, nothing like that. That is not in my personality. I'm not that person. But I was looking at myself in the mirror, just questioning what I was looking at as my reflection. Hard place to be. And I just felt the pressure to act like I was just like, I had to feel like I had to act like I was okay because I didn't want anybody to know that I wasn't okay. I actually wrote a story about it called Smiling Depression. And I used to think that I had people in my life where I was like, oh, that makes sense. That's actually like so-and-so. Oh my God. I'm like, this person's always so happy. Like that, you know what? But like, I wonder, if there's something behind that. Now I look back at writing that article and I have to go back and read it again because I seriously, subconsciously wrote it about myself. And I guess it's, I was missing my own personality. I was missing the bubbly person, the one who like posts all the positive quotes because they actually hit hearts. And I know that they would make somebody else feel better. I was missing the person who gave great perspective to people when they were in bad places, cheering everybody on. Like I would try my best to keep putting that front on, but I was like inside, it was just like, it just felt empty. Sarah, you commented, go into question 4. You said, you helped so many people, Tracy. I am grateful I met you on here. You helped me through a lot of, hearing me cry. You helped me through a lot with all these lives you do and through your work. And I think you're an amazing mentor to so many. That is, Sarah, I want to fly to wherever you're at in Georgia and give you a hug because it's those comments and that I hear from you guys that keep me doing this, keep me moving forward. Okay, next one. How did this impact the people closest to me? I'm laughing now, but it wasn't really a funny matter. I really think that Andy was the only one who really knew what was going on because I kind of became recluse. I mean, I pulled away from talking to some of my friends I haven't talked to in months, started reaching out again, started having the conversations of what was going on. Thankfully, I have very understanding and supportive friends. Andy just wanted to help and he didn't know how. And I think that that was one of the hardest things for me is because I didn't know how he would handle this because we both have stress. We both have our own levels of depression. We both have our angst with work. We both have our angst with life. And sometimes what I will say is when one of us are in a really fucked up place, the other one really shows through and shines through, shows up is what I'm trying to say. And that is exactly what he did. He saw how broken I was, how broken I was. And it broke his heart because he didn't know what to do. And when you see somebody that you love walking on eggshells because of you, and you actually care that they're doing that, not being a narcissist, actually giving a shit that they care so much, it breaks your heart because you don't know how to fix you. So how can you fix the situation? So I was feeling incredibly guilty. And in the communication, which Andy and I have struggled with communication on so many topics in our marriage, I'm just surprised that this particular period of our lives, that our communication became pretty spot on during this meltdown moment. which, mind you, was just like 4 months ago. And so we kind of were walking on eggshells together when you look at it. You know, he's walking into a room and I'm curled in a ball and I'm just crying. God knows what was happening or no reason. And I just felt cringy in my own skin. I felt like I was delicately tapping around the real Tracy and where she was at in there. And I didn't want to be the anxious one, but that is exactly what I became. And so I feel like relationships are affected even when relationships are going to be affected even when people love deeply. It's a matter of like how they show up around you and how they put themselves second, in essence, to help you or whomever's in the hard position work through whatever they're going through. It's the only way really the only person that was there for me. But it's not because none of my friends wouldn't have been there for me, because I have great friends. I just didn't open up to my friends. And I wasn't taking a lot of calls and making up a lot of excuses. And I'm sorry for that to the friends that are listening, but I'm glad that you all hear this and now understand me more, and I love you for that. So, question 5. One of the biggest turning points in your essay was deciding to ask for help instead of trying to power through. Give me 1 second. My laptop wasn't charging. And the question is, why was asking for help so hard? I thought I could do it on my own. I literally thought that I can mindset my way out of the shit. And that was with the positive thoughts and the positive affirmations and the positive podcast that I praise I preach all of that, because I say, everybody, listen to this, listen to that. It helps. And it does help. I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't. But when you're in that low of a place, I mean, I had to try something else. And nothing was working for me. Walking Lucy every day, I love that. Walking with Andy in the morning, I love that. Like, I mean, I kept doing the things that I love to do. And for one little brief moment, I'd feel okay. But then I would go right back into, am I going to fail at this? What am I going to do? What happens? Like, oh my God, if this doesn't work out, what's going to be the next thing? And it's like this pressure of like society and like money and success and where I should be at this point of my life. And like everything around me is like so much better than where I'm at in my life. And it was so loud, and it just kept coming and coming and coming. And I couldn't clear it out of my mind. And I just wanted to figure out like how to fix myself, and I couldn't. And did I want to get on medication? I was like, I've seen people on the medications. I've seen my friends. I've seen love, like family. I've seen what it does. And I'm like, I don't want to turn into somebody completely different. I just want something to help me get back to being me again. And, I do see a therapist once a week, and I do practice EMDR with her, and I'm still working through a lot of shit that happened from my past, and eventually it'll all clear out. But I couldn't even really do that type of practice because of the state of mind I was in. And that's when she suggested, she's like, maybe you need to see a psychiatrist. Like, would you consider medication? And, for a couple of weeks I fought it, and I was like, no, I'm going to get through this. But it kept getting worse and worse and worse. And it started to scare me, and I thought I was going to have a mental breakdown. So it was, me having to realize that strength sometimes just looks different and that there's no shame in asking for this type of help. So I did. I reached out to a psychiatrist. I bawled my eyes out on the call with her, explained everything that I was feeling. We went through like all the SSR1 drugs. She listed them in this order. And I'm like, why are you listing them in that order? And she's like, oh, it's just typically the most popular ones that, that we prescribe. And I was like, okay. I was like, well, I want to know more about them. So I started she was educating me on them, and I started to research on them after I got off the call with her. She's like, what's the main thing you don't want to have, you want to not happen or you want out of this? I'm like, I don't want to get fat. I know that's fucked up. To each their own, but that was the one thing that I said, because if you've read my stories before, you know that I've struggled with forms of body dysmorphia. And I just didn't want this to be another thing that was added on top of me trying to get to this point of feeling better inside, because if I have gained a lot of weight from it, I wouldn't feel better inside. So I just knew. And she's like, you know what, that's a very common thing for people to say, which made me feel normal and not so vain. And so then she made a decision. She said, well, Prozac is a really great, out of the 5 is probably the better one for you to be on. It's takes a longer time to get into your system, but it's easiest to wean off of. Because my next question, which I think is important for people to know, is, do I have to be on this forever? Because I don't want to be on something permanently. I just need something to help me get through whatever this frickin' patch is that I'm going through. And she said, yes. She's like, you do not have to be on this. Or she said, no, you do not have to be on this forever. This happens more often than you think. It's here for you when you need it. You do need to take it every single day. But when you feel like you're at a really good dip, when you feel like you're back to being yourself and you're at this point and you don't want to be on it anymore, then we'll start weaning you off of it. So she said, give it 3 months. That's when it pretty much takes up to 6 weeks to really get into your system and give it a shot. And I'll tell you, for the first 2 weeks, I was like, what the fuck is going on? I was like, I felt like I was drunk during the day without drinking, or that I smoked a joint without smoking it. And I was like in a daze. It was really, really, really bizarre. But I just kind of like kept talking to her about it. She's like, this is normal. This is normal. We keep going. And then like once like week 3.5 happened, I just started to see myself coming back, because I noticed I wasn't crying anymore. I noticed that I didn't have to take my anxiety medicine that much anymore. So it told me that this was working. Next, one thing you've never, let me rephrase that. One thing I never do in the essay is pretend I've reached the finish line. So where am I today? Well, I'm still healing. I think that's something that's going to take a while. I feel a ton better than when I actually wrote this article. I wrote this a few months back. Only recently published it though. Days are going to be difficult. I'm not looking for this medication to make me be completely numb to feeling anything other than like great, because that's just not real. So I still have my difficult moments. I still have days where I, feel a little down or feel a little off, but that makes me feel normal again. And as long as the massive crying shit doesn't come back. And I'm learning to trust myself again. And I'm also giving myself the space to say, like, it's okay. And like when I'm feeling off, to openly talk about it. And it's not like there's a timeline for this. It's not like I'm going to say, oh, in 2 more months, I'm going to be back to fully me and don't need to be on any medication anymore or whatever. But then again, maybe I will be, but this is all an experiment, and I'm it's like a self-discovery chapter, and I'm constantly working my way through learning this new person, this new part of me that I'm life piece part of life I'm going through, and this new path that I'm on, and who am I path that I'm on, if that makes any sense. But I guess the important thing is to know that it's okay, that I don't have all the answers right now, and that no matter what I'm going through, it's not permanent, and everything's going to be okay. And I got to tell myself that. And I think it's important to tell people that everything will be okay. Sometimes shit takes time. Sometimes it takes longer than we'd want it to, but in the end, it's going to be okay. So, the final question I like to ask everybody on my podcast, Let's Get Unstuck, has always been about helping people take one small step forward. If someone listening feels exactly like I described in this essay, what would I want them to know? I feel like this is so cliche because you always hear this kind of like in the mental health world. And, the more I talk with people and the more I hear them answer this question and the more I read, this always comes up. But it's the freaking truth. So take it for what it is. I'm not broken. You are not broken. I am not alone. You are not alone. There is absolutely nothing wrong with asking for help. I know it's hard. Don't let your pride get to the best of you. Don't fight this and think that it's something that you can just easily get over. If it becomes too unbearable, where it is affecting how you are on your day-to-day, driving, sleeping, communicating, your work, your relationships, just stop in your tracks and realize that you need some type of help. I'm not saying medication is for everybody. I'll say it, to each their own. But ask for help, whether it's to a friend, a family member, or somebody like a therapist who doesn't know you, who won't judge you, but can help just guide you or just listen. Don't believe every thought your mind produces. Truth. We gotta push the shit out. Like, our brains, they'll tell us all sorts of things. Our anxiety will speak in all different ways to us. The fear it'll overpower us. Me, you. But what I'm learning is that it's temporary what you hear. And you just got to tell that voice, whatever that is that this is not what's real. This is not what's happening. This is not me. And I think the more you say that, the more I say that, I feel like it's becoming a lot easier for me to keep that shit out. Lastly, this chapter isn't your final story. This chapter isn't my final story. This chapter is freaking interesting indeed. But I want to learn from this. I want to understand this. I want to learn about me more. I want to learn how to control things more. Not control, like take over control, but like how to control my emotions more. I want to learn. I want to know that no matter what happens, that we just keep going. And that better days are going to come. And life is a gift. And we have to understand that we are so lucky to have this. And I am very grateful for going through this experience. I am very grateful for the support I have around me, and it's all because I've asked for help. But I can babble on. I may as well stop while I'm ahead. So again, guys, thank you so much for listening to this story. Thank you for listening to all of the stories I bring on Let's Get Unstuck. I know I do this all on Substack, but I don't have to have Substackers. I just need anyone who wants to tell a personal story that can help connect with anyone else, because the importance of sharing is huge. Mental health is no joke, and people out there need your help, and your story will land with them. So thank you tonight for being here with me, and thank you for contributing to the communications. Sarah, I appreciate it. Thanks for my audience for showing up. And yeah, this is me, Tracy Edwards, and this is my truth. Have a great night.
For more real conversations like this, subscribe to letsgetunstuck.blog, where I share every story and every live episode. I'm Tracy Edwards, this is me, and this is my truth.